Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is pretty clear. Cut through all that noise, the relentless pace of cloud innovation, especially in Azure. We want to bring the really impactful technical updates straight to you. I mean, feels like a new cloud spins up every week, doesn't it? Just this torrent of features, improvements. Our job is to, sift through it and pull out the essentials you actually need.
Yeah, torn is almost an understatement sometimes. The sheer volume, week after week, it's huge. So for this deep dive, we're really zeroing in on a specific set of sources, the official Azure service updates, the ones from August 25th to August 28th, 2025. For our technical audience, and I think that's most of you listening, really understanding these incremental change, well, it's not just helpful, it's key to staying ahead. It moves so fast.
Right.
And we'll try to clarify acronyms like Entra ID, that's the new name for Azure Active Directory, right? Just to keep everyone on the same page.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. So the goal today isn't just a list, yeah? It's about distilling these updates into something you can actually use, actionable knowledge. And we'll make sure to separate out what's in preview, the early look stuff from what's launched and generally available, the production-ready features. Got a fair bit to cover, and yeah, like you said, a really strong focus on database services this week. Seems like a lot is moving in that space. So let's kick things off there. How's Azure making data management better? You always hear data is the lifeblood, right? So managing databases, securing them, it's just fundamental. And Azure's giving us some pretty serious upgrades this week. As we go through these, maybe think about how they might reshape your own data strategies, what you're doing now or planning next.
Exactly. So first up, we've got something in public preview. It's Azure Database for PostgreSQL Entra ID group login using user credentials. This is available now, but for newly provisioned servers.
Yeah.
Now, okay, on the surface, it sounds like just easier logins. But the deeper thing here, I think, is it moves database access away from, maybe custom scripts or local users and pulls it right into your main identity plane with Entra ID. So it really simplifies user management, boosts security for PostgreSQL flexible server. Think about compliance headaches. This helps smooth those out, especially for bigger orgs. Reduces the attack surface.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a big deal for governance, absolutely. Not just convenience, but like you said, pulling it into a more robust framework. But okay, say someone's got a complex, older PostgreSQL setup. What's the first step for them? Besides just spinning up a new server, Is migrating straightforward?
That's a really good question. Right now, it is for newly provisioned servers. So the takeaway really is strategic. Start thinking about aligning your identity strategy now. For existing systems, you'll need a plan, right? How to eventually get those users and roles into Entra ID groups, integrate them when you upgrade or provision new instances down the line. It definitely sets a clear direction architecturally. And speaking of making things smoother, especially for devs, we have a launched feature, generally available. It's the Azure SQL updates for late August 2025, specifically local SQL Server containers.
Local SQL Server containers.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds very handy for developers.
It really is, yeah. Devs, testers, they can now easily spin up local SQL Server containers right inside the MS SQL extension for VS Code. What's really transformative, I think, is how it changes that inner development loop. Truly local development, better consistency between environments, rapid iteration without messing up shared resources, and just less dependency on hitting actual Azure SQL database instances constantly during coding and testing. It just brings containers right into the dev toolkit, speeds things up, less friction.
That sounds like a huge productivity boost. Consistency too, but are there any common traps developers might fall into with local containers, like maybe managing the container state or making sure it really matches the cloud environment? What should they watch out for?
Oh yeah, critical point. Local containers are fantastic for speed, right? But you got to remember it is local. So ensuring full feature parity, especially with some specific Azure SQL managed features, that needs attention. And data persistence, managing data between container runs, that's another common thing to figure out. You definitely still need that solid CI/CD pipeline to test against a real Azure SQL instance before hitting production. So dev agility is great, but then once apps are live, you need visibility. Resilience matters. And speaking of critical insights, our next Azure SQL update, this one's in public preview, is all about seeing replication status, the replication lag metric.
Okay. Real-time RPO visibility. For critical stuff, that sounds like a game changer. How does that really help with disaster recovery planning?
It's powerful. Azure SQL Database now gives you this replication lag metric. So you get real-time visibility into your recovery point objective, or your RPO, when you've got GeoDR enabled. Geo-disaster recovery. What's really cool here is RPO stops being just this theoretical number in an SLA, right? It becomes a live, actionable data point. It's the difference between, well, hoping your DR plan works and knowing exactly where you stand, minute by minute, crucial if you're facing a potential failover. Lets ops teams, architects, make informed calls during critical times and actually validate their DR plans with hard data.
I can see that. Are there specific industries, maybe, or types of applications where this real-time view will have the biggest immediate impact? Financial services, maybe?
Yeah.
Healthcare?
Absolutely, yeah. Any industry with really strict compliance needs or just, very low tolerance for data loss. Think financial trading, critical healthcare systems, even big e-commerce platforms. They'll find this invaluable. It lets them actually quantify and show their RPO adherence much easier than before. And sticking with databases, but moving to migrations, another GA feature. Schema migration is now available in Azure Database Migration Service, DMS.
Wait, a single checkbox for schema migration? Wow, I remember spending days debugging schema issues. That would have been amazing. Definitely going to save some headaches.
Tell me about it. Yeah, this is a very welcome update for anyone doing cloud migrations. Azure DMS now supports schema migration for Azure SQL Database. And like you said, best part, single checkbox. It just smooths out that whole migration journey, handles missing schema objects right alongside the data automatically. The deeper thing here isn't just less manual work, though. It's eliminating a common, sometimes subtle, failure point. Manual schema tweaks, notoriously error-prone. So this just makes those big moves to Azure SQL Database faster, more reliable, more efficient.
Yeah, huge operational win there. Okay, and one more in the database world for now. Back to public preview.
Right, one more. This is for Azure Cosmos DB, for MongoDB vCore specifically, the ability to add shards and rebalance data. So with Cosmos DB for MongoDB vCore, you can now dynamically add physical shards as your cluster grows, and then rebalance the data across them. The elasticity you get with compute and storage here means often a single physical shard or node is enough performance-wise. But, as data volume grows, throughput demands increase, inevitably. The ability to just add shards and rebalance without massive downtime, that's critical. It really shows off the advanced scaling strategies here, gives you flexibility for managing those really large scale NoSQL deployments. Performance keeps pace with growth, less manual pain.
That kind of elasticity is really powerful. But how does an architect figure out when it's time to add shards? What are the key things they should be watching in a vCore setup? Is it mostly throughput, storage?
Primarily both, but often throughput is the first signal. You typically watch metrics like request units per second, RUSEC, latency, definitely CPU utilization across your existing shards. If you see you're consistently hitting high utilization or latency is creeping up, that's probably your cue. And then the beauty is you add shards, rebalance, and you scale out that capacity horizontally, often without touching your application code. Major plus. So yeah, this whole set of database updates, it really shows a strong push, doesn't it? Better management, deeper insights, more flexible scaling across all kinds of Azure databases, from simplifying security with Entra ID to better migration tools to granular replication control. They're constantly refining these data platforms.
Absolutely. And if data is central, then how you store it, how you secure it, just as critical. So let's pivot now. Updates focusing on storage and data management within Azure. And yeah, this is where things get really interesting, I think, from a security and ops efficiency angle, especially as everyone's trying to tighten up their cloud security.
Couldn't agree more. And we have a big GA update here. Entra ID and RBAC support for GetAccountInfo and other supplemental APIs for Azure Storage.
Yeah.
This is huge. Entra ID, again, the new Azure AD name, and role-based access control, RBAC. Support is now generally available for really critical admin-level APIs, things like get account information, get container ACL, sed container ACL, and same for queues and tables. The key insight here isn't just, more APIs support identity. It's about seriously leveling up storage governance.
Yeah.
It moves these crucial administrative functions for Azure Storage under that robust central control of Entra ID and RBAC. That fundamentally boosts your governance, your auditing capabilities for storage accounts. You can now define exactly who can do what with much more precision, better security posture, better compliance. Straight up.
That really does sound like a significant step, more granular security right at the storage layer. What specific compliance benefits does this bring? Thinking about regulated industries, needing tight audit trails on who touched what when.
Well, it's massive for compliance.
Yeah.
Imagine needing to prove, say, only authorized admins can change container access list. With Entra ID and RBAC, those permissions, centrally managed, fully auditable, you move away from maybe shared keys or less granular controls. You get to a real principle of least privilege model, which is just fundamental for things like SOC2, IPOBA, GDPR, because you clear proof of control, shows intent. Super important. And for folks managing large data sets, maybe for dev test, Another public preview and storage, Azure NetApp Files short-term clones.
Short-term clones for NetApp files.
But
Okay, that
it's-
sounds like a dream for fast up cycles. What's that mean for capacity?
Yes.
For workflow?
So Azure NetApp Files short-term clones give you space-efficient, instant read-write access to data. How? By creating these temporary, thin clones right from existing volume snapshots. The deeper impact. It totally changes how you create isolated data environments. You just eliminate the need for full data copies when you need to quickly spin up, say, a test environment. Leads to potentially huge capacity savings. Makes it perfect for software dev, testing, anywhere you need quick, isolated production-like data. For iterating, validating, without the overhead of copying massive data sets. It really helps accelerate that shift-left testing idea by making data easy to grab.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense for efficiency. Beyond dev and test, are there maybe less obvious uses where these short-term clones could be really useful, maybe like rapid data analysis or even ML model training on specific data slices?
Absolutely. Good examples. Think about incident forensics. You need to quickly recreate a system state from a snapshot to analyze it, right?
Yeah.
Without messing with the live system. Perfect use case.
Yeah.
Or, data scientists. They could create isolated, temporary environments, experiment with specific data sets for model training, validation. Again, without needing massive storage for full copies. These changes, they really streamline operations, but at the same time, tighten security and make better use of resources. It's that dual benefit, right? Impacts the bottom line and the risk profile.
Okay, moving up the stack a bit. From data itself to the network layer, this is where improvements often really empower architects, right? Designing more robust, secure, performant apps, connectivity, control. It's all key here.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And we've got a public preview update for the custom block response code and body for Application Gateway WAF. So the web application firewall the way that's integrated with Application Gateway. It now lets you customize the response status code and the body, the message, for requests it blocks. The insight here, it's really about improving the user experience, even when security kicks in. Instead of just that generic, kind of scary 403 forbidden page, you can now give more specific, branded, maybe even helpful feedback to users. Could be crucial for troubleshooting, just maintaining a professional look and feel, maybe even guiding users on how to fix the issue themselves. Could cut down support tickets.
Customizing those block pages is definitely a nice touch. Better UX even when security says no. Is there a balance to strike, though, between being helpful to a real user and maybe giving away too much info to a potential attacker?
Oh, absolutely. Very sharp point. Yes, there's definitely a balance. The customization is great for user-friendly messages, but you still need to be careful about the level of detail you provide. You'd probably want, a polite branded message, maybe include a support reference ID, but you wouldn't want to reveal specifics about why it was blocked, like the exact rule triggered, or details about your back-end systems. It's about improving perception and supportability. Yeah. Not handing an attacker a debugging guide. And for the container folks listening, a generally available update, CNI overlay for Application Gateway for Containers and AGC.
Okay, CNI overlay sounds like a pretty significant network thing for container apps. Can you break down what CNI overlay actually is and then the impact of it being GA with App Gateway for Containers and AGA?
It's sure thing. So CNI is Container Network Interface. It's basically the standard way to set up networking for Linux containers. An overlay network lets containers, potentially in different virtual networks, talk to each other like they're on the same flat network. So Azure CNI overlay working with Application Gateway for Containers and its ingress controller, AGIC. That whole setup is now generally available, GA. What this lets you do is have your AKS clusters. Your Kubernetes clusters use pod IPs from a completely separate address range, a separate CIDR block. This is a major strategic win for conserving your main VNet IP space. The deeper insight. It seriously simplifies deploying multiple clusters, especially in big companies with complex network setups. It helps get around that VNet IP exhaustion problem, which can be a real headache. Streamlines IP management for tricky Kubernetes networking, especially when you've got lots of clusters or need to fit into existing tight network layouts. It definitely raises the question, how are you managing your container networking today? Could this simplify things?
Yeah, that really highlights how these network updates impact container workloads, secure app delivery, gives architects way more flexibility and control, especially in those big, complex setups, tackles a fundamental Kubernetes scaling challenge.
All right, let's bring us home. Final segment. Updates supporting the developer workflow and also expanding Azure's global reach. Stuff impacting code quality all the way to data residency, empowering the builders, expanding the platform.
Okay, first, a really useful public preview for developers. The Roslyn Analyzer for durable functions in .NET Isolated. So if you're using durable functions in the .NET Isolated model, you now get built-in support for the Roslyn Analyzer. It's on by default. What is it? It's a real-time code analyzer. It actively helps you stick to the specific coding rules, the constraints of durable orchestrations. The insight here is really about proactive code quality. Shifting that debugging effort left earlier in cycle, it's just crucial for better code quality, reliability, simpler debugging for those complex serverless workflows. It catches potential problems while you code, before they become nasty runtime bugs. A real-time analyzer for durable functions. That's fantastic for serverless dev. Helps keep things consistent, avoid those common errors that can be so tricky to debug in distributed systems. What are some of the most common mistakes or patterns this analyzer helps developers catch?
Oh, it's great for things like spotting non-deterministic operations inside an orchestrator function, which is a big no-no. Using async methods the wrong way, maybe improper handling of external calls that could mess up the replay logic. It's basically like having a little durable functions expert sitting on your shoulder reviewing code as you type it. Super helpful. And finally, a really significant update for Azure's global reach. A whole new geography. Microsoft Azure is now available from a cloud region in Austria.
Ah, a new region in Austria. That's a key strategic expansion for Azure. What are the big implications, immediate and maybe longer term, of having that region live?
Yeah, this is foundational, and it's generally available now. Microsoft officially opened its cloud region in Austria. The impact is, well, it's multifaceted, right? It'll definitely accelerate digital transformation, AI innovation for companies, public sector orgs within Austria, brings low latency services right to their doorstep, and crucially, it lets them store and process their data securely, meeting local regulations. Data residency is key. If you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. This expands data residency options globally, boosts service availability. That's vital for compliance strategies worldwide and just for serving regional customers who have those specific data sovereignty needs. It's not just about adding more servers, it's about building trust, enabling local markets, especially in places with strong regulations.
And there we have it, that continuous effort, right?
Yeah.
Supporting developers with better tools, expanding the global infrastructure, bringing Azure closer to more people, while tackling those critical data sovereignty requirements.
That was quite a tour, wasn't it? Through the latest Azure updates, we saw really broad range this week, from deep technical database features, enhancing security, scalability, to network controls empowering app delivery, developer tooling, improving code quality, even expanding the global footprint. And these aren't just random isolated changes, are they? They feel interconnected. They collectively make the whole Azure ecosystem more resilient, performant, accessible, pushing the boundaries for cloud data development.
So what does this all actually mean for you listening? These updates, preview, or GA, they aren't just technical footnotes. I'd challenge you to think, okay, not just what changed, but how might these specific things influence your next architecture decision, your security approach, maybe even streamline your dev pipeline. Each one has implications, right, for efficiency, cost, risk management, stuff that directly hits your projects.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe final thought to leave you with, how do these kinds of incremental updates, these continuous weekly changes, how do they fundamentally shift the whole landscape of cloud native development and operations over time? And what new opportunities or maybe even challenges do they present for your immediate projects, your long-term strategic planning, especially as you're always trying to optimize, right, for performance, security, cost in your Azure environments? Definitely keep those questions in mind as you navigate this constantly evolving cloud world.